Hello and welcome to this video. I'm going to be showing you how I create an opt-in landing page using WordPress and Elementor. Now we are going to be using this opt-in landing page as a sort of inspiration to really copy and create our own version of this landing page. So this is a page that I actually designed and created myself, and now I'm doing it for another client. As I mentioned, I'm going to be using this page as an inspiration, but we're going to make it a little bit different, using a lot of the same elements that you see here that we need in a landing page. We need a good hero image, we need a good headline, we need buttons with call to actions, we need social proof, for example, logos from companies that you've worked with, frequently asked questions that people may have, a little bit about the actual business. Reviews offer additional social proof and helps the visitor to feel more at ease with giving out their information and a form for them to do just that. Now, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So here we are in the WordPress browser, and let's go ahead and edit with Elementor because that's how we're going to be building the page. Now, as for the actual final images, the actual final copy, for example, the final headline and the frequently asked questions and all of the elements, we won't necessarily be using the final ones. For example, I'll place in a dummy headline and dummy copy just to kind of get the design of the page going, and then we'll go back in and finalize everything. So what I like to do in Elementor is, let's actually move this here. I like to work with the entire Elementor canvas, especially for a landing page where I don't want the person poking around in the navigation bar, going to the home page, going to the about page. I want them to remain on this page and give their information. So we're going to go ahead and use the full Elementor canvas and take out the navigation bar. So here we have the hero section, so we can go ahead and add a section here. We can choose the height of this section. Let's do fit to screen. So it's going to be about the height of the person's screen, and it will adjust depending on the size of the browser. And it looks like it has two columns, or perhaps just one column. Let's see, what would be easiest? I think it would be easier if we did, I like to work with intersections, so we're going to go ahead and do an intersection of 2. And then we've got a heading, we've got a subheading, we have got bullet points here. So we can add icons. I think it's called an icon list in Elementor. Another text or subheading, we'll just add a regular text. And then we have the button with the call to action. So let's just go ahead and add that there. And I want to make sure that these elements are in the left quadrant. So let's go ahead and just move them over here. And I want them to be in the left quadrant so that the image that I choose to put in the background is gonna show through nice and clearly. And I don't have to do all of the padding and all of the extra unnecessary things. So I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and choose an image for the background. So I'm going to look for an image that is mostly right aligned. I like how this looks a lot. I actually really like this image. However, it's left aligned. So let's see if we can find. I can always flip the image around. I believe you can even do that in WordPress. Yeah, you can flip horizontally. But let's see if we can actually choose a different image instead. Oh, this is a nice one. And then you can see that it uploads the image in full size. So we'll want to go over here in Elementor and change the positioning and the size of the image. We want to fit it to cover. And that looks pretty good. And right now it's probably center aligned, looks a little bit better than how it was before. That looks good. I feel like we could find a better image, but that is an option. This is another really sexy image. Let's see what that looks like. I really like that one actually. Let's go ahead and stick with this image. And what I did with this page, it's not really noticeable, is I did add a background overlay over this image with a gradient effect. So on the left side, you can put whatever color you want. And then on the right side, you would make it transparent. Oh no, I'm in the wrong section. So this actually changes the background, and we don't want that because we want to use the image. You want to make sure that if you use an overlay, like a gradient overlay, that you use background overlay as opposed to background. So background overlay, and then you can see here I can add a gradient. So on the left, I'm going to want black, and then on the right, I want it to maybe be transparent. We'll see. And right now it's set up by default where it's top and bottom gradient. So then we're going to want to flip it, but let's do something really quick first. Let's make this really dark, and then we're going to use this angle and probably how can we linear, let's see if we just make it a color. So 360 just moves it around. Yeah, I think I want it to be about 90 degrees. Yeah, and you can see with the 90 degrees over here on the left is black, over here on the right is blue, but of course on the right we want the image to be there. So we're gonna make this transparent on the right. And then on the left, we have whatever color we choose to use. You can do black, and then of course you'd need to change the coloring of the font, or you can do white if you wanted it to be a lighter look, or whatever other color you'd like. Let's see, do I like better black or white? I kind of like the black, but then I feel as though, let me show you a kind of cool design trick. So if I were to duplicate this, just so I can show you something, if you want to use a darker gradient, I would recommend that you use a darker image. So let's see here. So for example, oh, that's a vertical image. Let's see. Oh, that's really pretty too. Let's say we were to use this image in the background. You'll see that when we change the background overlay to black, it looks much better than the way that we had it before. So if you want to use a white overlay, you want to use an image with lots of lights and whites, and vice versa for the dark colors. Which one do I prefer? I kind of like the dark look. I do kind of like the dark look. The only thing I might do is the actual background image. I would center right, center left. Just kind of move it over a little bit so we see more of that image. Yes, I much prefer that. And so we're going to go ahead and just delete this one. Now her website does have a little coding issue that was there before that we need to fix. As a temporary solution, we're going to fix the margin to cover that little coding issue. That's nothing that a normal website would have to worry about. Okay, perfect. So that looks really great. So I would have a really great heading here, and I would make sure to change the font to white or whatever other color that I want to use. I would change the text font to white, this part here to white, and let's refer to her actual website for some guidance, some stylistic guidance. So we would want to, of course, increase the size of this. I think that size is probably fine. And then for the button, we would use her signature color there of blue. So background color, no, We want the button text color, background color, and then the text color could be black. You can play around with these things and see which one you prefer. Or you can do something like what I've already done for her website, which would be making the background actually transparent and then making sure that there's a border with a solid line. Could make it a little bit wider actually. And the primary color. What is this? The width. Oh no, I don't want the radius. I want the thickness, which is actually pretty fine. I like it. So something like that. Let's refer here. So you want to make a really good headline offer here, and then a call out of who exactly you're talking to. You can put what's included in your offer, and then you would have your call to action right there. So we'll go ahead and fill that in a little bit later in another video. All right, so we have some social proof down here. I think that looks really great. So let's go ahead and add another section. And it looks like we have a heading and a subheading. So let's see, and then we have to choose a color for this background. Let's refer back to her website. So again, it's a lot of darks. We do have a white section here, which looks fine with the black on top. Or we can do something like this. I quite like that. Yeah, I kind of like that. But actually for the logos, I kind of like the white. So let's go ahead and use the white. So we're going to click here and we're going to make sure we change the background color to white. We'll change the height of this section. Actually, let's go ahead and just fill in some of the elements and then we'll decide on everything else. So we have a heading, a subheading, or not, and then this looks like a gallery. We can actually check to see exactly what kind of element that is. So yeah, it's a gallery with a justified setting. So we can go here in Elementor, gallery, gallery justify. I'm going to go with gallery. And we can change the layout to justified. And then we can add these icons. So we've got Style Magazine. Yelp is a really good one. 500px. This one. This one. And this one. 3, 6. I think that looks really good. Times Square, NYC. Let's see if we can find that one. There it is. And let's go ahead and enter. We can always change the order that we put things in. Maybe you start with the most impressive one. And then insert gallery. Justified. It's a little bit big right now. Ooh. Guys, that's not my stomach. It's raining. We have a big storm passing through my city. So the thunder is rumbling. All right, so there you have it. And then we'll want to center these elements. Now, as for this section, we're going to go ahead and add, instead of making it a specific height for the bottom sections, I instead like to put padding on the top and padding on the bottom. 100 is usually a good amount of padding. You can also go a little bit more if you'd like, with like 150, but I actually quite like 100 on the top and 100 on the bottom. And then the sections themselves are boxed so that they're not too wide, which you can see if you click here and you go to layout, it's boxed as opposed to full width, which I quite like, so I don't need to adjust the width of the sections. Alright, so that's that. And then if we want, we can add more pictures from the portfolio. Some frequently asked questions. So again, we would add another section. And she has something similar already on the home page, which is this. And we also have her portfolio set up like this. Which way would we rather go? I kind of really like this look. And as you can see, it's an intersection. So you can see here we have this section, and then within the section, within this column, we have an intersection. You can see right here. And then within the intersection, there are 2 columns. And then the 2 columns have 2 horizontal images and 1 vertical one. And then right below it, let's see. This image is actually in the preliminary section, like in the bigger section. And then down here, again, we have the intersection with 2 columns, but they're just changed over. So if we go here, how should we do this? Should I prefer? to do like this in a straight line, like I did with this one, which I kind of like? Or do we prefer to do something like this? Because it is an opt-in page and I really don't want them scrolling too much, I kind of want to do it like this. But at the same time, her images are just so beautiful that I do want to show them off as well. We're going to do this. We're just going to create a little section with 2, 3, 4 images. And I think that's going to be fine. So here within this section, we're going to add an intersection. Oops. So we're going to make sure that's added, an intersection. And then I can add another intersection for the bottom image. But then I would want to make sure it only has one column. And then I would go here, and I would put an image here, put an image here. I could drag another image, or I can just duplicate this one and drag it down to this section. Is that the setup? So we've got 2 images on this side. So within this column, I'm gonna just duplicate. I can just duplicate it. And then you see it makes this section longer, but you see this section is gonna have 2 horizontal images, and then this section I'll put a vertical one, so it will balance itself out. And then as you can see, it's right up on the edge of the section. And you want to make sure, one thing about designing websites, you want to make sure that all of your sections have the minimum amount of padding on the top and the bottom, that's consistent. That's going to give your page, you know, it's going to look aesthetically pleasing when you do that. Oops. So we're going to do 100 on the top, 100 on the bottom. So if you do padding of 100 on the top and the 100 on the bottom, for any section, you want to keep that consistency throughout all of the sections on your page. Okay, so wonderful. So we need 2 horizontal and 1 vertical. We could use the same images that she has here. It doesn't matter. I've already kind of picked out all of the images of hers that I love the most. We can use black and white images. We can use color images. I kind of like her black and white images. What do you guys think? Should we use some black and white images? Or color? For the sake of this video, for now, I kind of like the black and white look. So let's see if we can find enough images. There's one, horizontal, portfolio. So what I did was I put portfolio in the description. And then maybe I'll actually not use the black and white images in the end. But for now, we'll go ahead and use them. Alright, so that looks really beautiful. The only thing I would say, you can see that this image is obviously longer than these 2, so you can just drag the section to be spaced more consistently. And then down here, I would add another horizontal picture. Ooh, this is actually really gorgeous. Can do something like that. Maybe I'll flip these two. And that looks really great. You can see that this image doesn't quite space out all the way. And for that, let's see if we can, oh, there you go. Perfect. So now everything is perfectly spaced. Let's go back here. What do we have? So underneath we have some frequently asked questions, which is nice. So again, we're going to add another section where we would drag the heading and then drag the editor, and then it actually has, you can do toggle, you can do a toggle menu, an accordion menu. This is what's known as a toggle menu. An accordion menu looks very similar. You can actually just throw it in there so you can have an idea. It's essentially the same thing. Either one is fine. Let's see the toggle. Oops. I kind of like the toggle. Perfect. And then we can go ahead and plug in all of her questions. And remember what I said about the sections. So we're going to go ahead and make sure with this section we have a padding of 100 on the top, padding of 100 on the bottom. And then if we decide to, because the background of the entire website is this gray color, so that's why it's by default gray. But of course we can go in and change the actual color of the background on any of the sections to kind of separate them, which I think is a really good idea. I think this section would maybe look really cool in black. Yeah, I think that looks really pretty. All right, so we've got the frequently asked questions about the photographer. Is a good thing. People may be interested to learn about the photographer. Keep in mind that this is a landing page. We don't really want to put too much on here because our objective is to get them to submit a form, which we're also going to add on. Let's make sure that we're saving as we go along. So we're going to add some testimonials. Now we could add the screenshots from Google, which I think looks actually really good. Or let's see what we did on her actual website homepage. So on her actual website homepage, we created this look with the reviews, but I actually feel like this adds more social proof because you can tell that it's actually from Google. So it just looks a little bit more like social proofy. Another good thing that you can add in are like comments from Facebook on posts or Facebook reviews. But I think this looks a little bit more authentic than, for example, this, although this is much prettier. So a little bit later, I'm going to go in and take screenshots of her Google reviews and then plug them in here. So let's see. We just Google her. And then we can open up in a new tab. No? Okay. So we've got to click on it right through here. And from here, we can just Command-Shift-4 on a Mac. And just go through and screenshot all of her reviews. Just try to get them reasonably the same. Oops, it's a little bit off. Try to get them the same size. She has quite a few reviews. I'm not going to do all of them right now. Okay, I think that's enough for now. You get the idea. And let's see how it looks here. So we've got 2 columns of just reviews. And I would disable the ability to click. I don't think that's really necessary. And the best way to do this, so again, we're going to add another section. And we are going to add a gallery. I always like to, before I upload images to a website, I like to crunch them with tinypng.com just to get them as small as possible and keep the website page looking or fast. Keep everything loaded fast. And also, I make a practice. I could have renamed those images to be SEO friendly, but what's really important is that you put your alt text. So boudoir photography review. That's what this is. We want to tell Google what this page is about. which helps Google know what this website is about, which is going to help her overall rank higher and higher in Google. So actually, oops. Okay, let's clear the selection. There's a couple that need to be deleted. All right. Gallery. And we're going to make sure we're going to do 2 columns. And what's the aspect ratio going to have to be? None of these work, so it has to be a different layout. Maybe justified, maybe masonry. Yeah, that works really well. That looks good. I would disable the ability for people to click on it like this. It's totally unnecessary. So where it says link, we don't want it to link to the media file. We want it to link to nothing. I like the white background blending in with the review. So I would change the background color to white so that it matches. I also don't like this hover, this highlight hover. How can we change that? Overlay. We're gonna go to Style, Hover, Overlay, Hover. There it is. So this is an overlay and it happens on hover. So we're gonna go ahead and just turn this, either turn it down so it's not so drastic, or we can turn it off completely. I like when a website is interactive, so we'll leave it a little bit. Yeah, I feel like that looks much better. And then we also want to add padding on the top and padding on the bottom, which means one of these sections, probably this one, we're going to change the color to make it stand out a little bit more from this one. Yeah, I think that looks really great. Perfect. We got to change the hover on this too. In fact, so Style, Overlay, Hover, and I don't want any hover on these images. I also don't want any for you to be able to click. Beautiful. All right, and then if we go below, we have our form, which is ultimately what we want people to fill out. Now, again, we're saving as we go along. Save draft. Now, it may be a good idea to actually put the form up at the top rather than on the bottom. Or you can put the form on the top and on the bottom. How can we implement this in a way that stylistically it matches? So something like this, I would much prefer than, although I like this stylistically, I really like, for the sake of conversion, having the form at the top of the page. I also would put less questions. So let's just go ahead. I like to duplicate sections because we've already made it the height that we want and everything. And we can make it look something more like this. So we can still put everything here. And then we would maybe change the background. So we would delete this. Perfect. And then we can add an image. How can we do this? Because we're going to have the form on one side. I mean, we could have the form over here. And how we would do that is by adding HTML. And then we would add the HTML code for the form. Elementor also has their own version of forms, which is fabulous, works really well. But the CRM system that I'm using for this client, I would prefer to use their form directly. It's a software that I use. I'll go ahead and link to that down below. It's excellent, excellent, excellent if you're looking for a great CRM system. The only problem is that it doesn't integrate with Elementor right now. But the CRM system is like the most amazing CRM system ever. So make sure you at least check it out. So I'm going to use the code here. So we can actually leave everything here. And then I can actually take away the call to action because it will have a form button at the end. And then I still have to figure out how we can put an image because that's very important. Could probably do without the list and have an image there instead. So maybe something like this. I kind of like the horizontal image. I love this image, really pretty. Yeah, something like that. And when I've made sections and I'm not certain if I'll use it or not or something like that, I like to, for example, this one, I actually want to switch these images out. Oh, but then this one matches. Let's see, I can maybe use, you see, it's a really creative process. You have to go through and see what you like, see what works for you, tweak it, twerk it. Where's the image that I love? Is it this one? I think it's this one. Beautiful. And then we can move this one up. Perfect. So I have this section. I'm not sure if I'll use it or if I'll just scrap it. So I'll just drag it down to the bottom until I'm ready for it, or I'll just scrap it in the end. And then the last section, which again will be another form. What I can do is exactly what I just showed you. I can just duplicate this section, drag it down to what will be the bottom, And then to kind of switch it up, I can put the form over here instead. And then I can also change this image. And then we have the form up at the top, because remember the form is going to go here. Just as a dummy, let's go ahead and just add a form. Yeah, so you can get an idea. So we're going to have a form here, obviously that you can see a lot better. And then we'll have a form over here. Or we can use this section for the form with this gone. But then we're not going to see this beautiful image underneath. As I said, these are all just stylistic things that you can play around with. Until you get the page exactly how you want it. So I think that's it for now. I'm going to wrap up this video. As you can see from this opt-in landing page for an offer that we just created in Elementor, which I will link in the description. We have the call to action, or whatever action we want them to take. We have a form. In this scenario, we have that up here above the fold. So that's another thing. You want to make sure you look on mobile to make sure that everything looks great. So for example here, this looks beautiful, but you can see that on a cell phone, the form is not above the fold. That's very, very important. When someone lands on the landing page, you want the action that you want them to take to be at the top. So I will probably work around this page a little bit so that this form can be above the fold. Maybe we can do something like adding the heading here. Right, we can add the heading up here. We can, if we want it to be left aligned, we can just, oh, this is what we can do. We can add an intersection. Like, oh yeah, that's an easy fix. And just add another intersection and it will give us the same effect. Well, not quite. But Elementor makes it so easy to drag and drop and do everything. So then what we can do is the form will be here. But what we can do is something like that works. Maybe instead I can use a vertical image. And then what I can do is take the margin of either this section or this image, and bring it up in alignment with the heading. And then if we go to mobile, then you can see it's then the form is above the fold, but then this image is covering up the form. So then you would want to make sure on mobile you take off that margin, because by default everything you do in desktop, it automatically copies it over to the mobile. So now we're talking. I would probably move this section you gotta tweak it and twerk it and make it work for you. Or we can delete this altogether and put everything there really simply. And then we can also reduce the size of this because it's on a mobile phone. And then we can also make sure, because remember it's set to fit to height, fit to screen for the desktop, and it's a little bit different on the mobile. So you can see here up at the top there's like no spacing on the top, which I don't really like how that looks. So I would go in and I would add some padding on the top. Maybe about 25. And then also some on the bottom. That looks great. Once we have a really great engaging headline, could probably do something interesting in the background as well. And then on desktop it also looks great. Obviously we need to fill in more copy. Can make the background more interesting as well, for example by adding some detail to the background. Let's see, center, and doing something like that. We can turn off the background overlay. Then with this, it looks a bit bright, so I can either, oh no, we can do background overlay. Ah, see, Elementor is so awesome. You just gotta play around with it. And it's really fun actually to be creative. You can do something like that, and then you can drag down the opacity on the emblem so you can only see it just a little bit in the background, just to add some interest. I think that looks really beautiful. Lovely. All right, so to wrap up, We've created the header section with the headline, and then we can play around with the wording and everything that we'll use so that it looks great on desktop and mobile, and it communicates and gets across the message that we want to the website visitor. Then we have some social proof just below. We have a display of the photographer's work. Then we have some frequently asked questions. We also have that here. On this page, we have a little bit about the photographer and a video, which is awesome, which we can add. It's totally up to you, or maybe it's not necessary. I don't think it will be necessary for this particular client, but I may add it in. Raves and reviews of screenshots directly from her Google account, her Google My Business, and then at the very end we have, of course, the call to action, the final call to action with the form submission, which we're going to add the HTML code from the CRM that I'm using for this client. And that is it, guys. This is how I design sales pages and landing pages, opt-in pages using WordPress and Elementor. Now, if you need some inspiration for some landing pages, opt-in pages, sales pages that you can copy or use as inspiration, check the links in the description below, and I will leave some helpful links there for you. I hope you find this video helpful, and if you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.